The Alabama Booksmith presents Author Spotlight. Because every book in our store is signed, our Wall of Fame displays a breathtaking array of writers and signatures. Close-up shots reveal giants of literature, acclaimed historians, stars of stage and screen, our nation's leaders, famous sports heroes, and thousands of other esteemed authors. Today's Wall of Fame guest is Lars Anderson, who will discuss his new book, Dabo's World, the life and career of Coach Sweeney and the rise of Clemson football. And here's your host, Jake Reese.
Welcome, Lars Anderson, New York Times bestseller, former Sports Illustrated senior editor, author of 10 books, journalism professor at the University of Alabama, radio host, and most importantly, father of Autumn K, Farrah Rose, and Lincoln Henry. Welcome, and I know how busy you are. Thank you for coming.
Great to be with you, Jake. You have been so supportive of my career over the years, and always such an honor and pleasure to see you and spend time with you.
Gee, thank you. I'll assure you and the audience that the pleasure is certainly ours. Lars Anderson is one of America's top journalists, really in all of sports. He's chiefly known in the college football world, but he covers everything. Lars' books have entertained and informed readers about Red Grange, Jim Thorpe, Dwight Eisenhower, you know, the mean, tough linebacker at West Point. I think he was involved in World War II and in the White House.
A little bit. D-Day, yeah, he had a little say in D-Day, only the most important military invasion in human history, but
a heck of a West Point linebacker.
That's right.
The whole Manning family, Bear Bryant, Nick Saban, and now Dabo Sweeney. The success and popularity of Lars' books is that he digs behind the obvious, and we dug behind the obvious and wondered if you would share the secret we found out, the advice you received a quarter century ago from legendary Hall of Famer Alexander Wolf.
Yes, boy, you did do your research. When I was a young reporter at Sports Illustrated, Alex was a mentor figure to me, and he always said, if you only use 10% of your notes, you are going to have a winning story. And so that means you need to report. And in a lot of ways, you know, if you're a good writer, you can make it all pretty, but if you don't have the sort of raw information, you won't hold the attention of the reader.
We feel that's what separates Lars Anderson's books from many others that are beautifully written, but with your books we feel we get the inside stuff, and this great book contains lots of inside stuff. To start off with, will you share with our audience how William Christopher became Dabo?
It was his older brother had trouble saying, hold on.
That boy?
It was that boy, but wait, yeah. And who just would say, instead of that boy, it came out Dabo. And the name just stuck. And
Dabo was a small child at the time?
Yeah, it was just a baby. And it came out as Dat Boy. it was trying to say that boy, came out as Dabo, and the name stuck, and Dat Boy became Dabo, and it's been with him ever since. And it's a unique name, and you know, I think growing up, people sort of tended to remember him because of that name, and it fits. It just fits. It's one of those names that just perfectly,
looks like a Dabo.
Yeah, it perfectly fits the man now.
Well, that's one of the many tidbits that this awesome book lets readers know that you've always wanted to know. College football devotees are really already familiar with your basic story, and many Clemson supporters and Clemson haters believe they could write this book. In fact, you know, like many football fans, I thought I pretty well knew the story, but I was honestly inspired. I felt educated when I turned the last page. Would you also share, I'd love for our audience to know some of the details, what kind of athlete Dabo was in high school?
He was a very good high school athlete, good basketball player, good baseball player, obviously good football player, but he wasn't the caliber of athlete that would necessarily catch the attention of SEC coaches, SEC schools. His dream was always to play for Paul Bear Bryant. Paul Bear Bryant was his idol growing up. You know, like so many across the state of Alabama, you go to church in the morning on Sundays, and then on Sunday afternoon you watch the Paul Bryant show. And really much of Dabo's coaching philosophy today, the core root of it goes back to Bear Bryant. And Bear Bryant always used to say, coach them hard, hug them harder. Meaning you get after them on the field, but once they're off the field, you embrace them, you try to help them grow into young men of substance, and you really care for them. And I would say right now at Clemson, it's a relationship-driven program. It's all about sort of the culture that Dabo has created, and a lot of it comes again from Bear Bryant. But yeah, so Dabo, he always just wanted to go to Alabama. That was his school. So he goes to Alabama, and his freshman year, he's sitting next to his girlfriend, Kathleen, who soon would become his wife. They're in the stands, I think a second or third game, and he saw a couple of Alabama receivers drop some balls, and he turns to Kathleen and he says, you know, I think I can play. I think I can do this. And so then he sort of talks his way into earning a tryout with as a walk-on redshirt freshman, and is absolutely grueling. I think it was something like 60 guys tried out, and only 2 made it onto the team, and Dabo was one of them. And it just it was his hard work and his just never quit attitude, and this idea that no one was going to sort of out hustle him, out study him, and outwork him. And that really, those core principles of Dabo are still there today. And you know, he'd overcome so much at that point in his life. He and his mother had essentially been homeless for a little bit while he was at Pelham High. They would sleep in a car, sleep in different hotel rooms because they were having financial problems. But Dabo always just had this cheery attitude, this attitude that, you know what, when the sun comes up tomorrow, it's going to be a beautiful day. There's nothing but promise on the horizon, and let's go attack it. He wouldn't allow the sort of darkness that was that enveloped part of his childhood to sort of take him down, to limit him in any way. And it's a remarkable story of perseverance.
It really is, and those I don't know how many people who are not fans of college football would read this book or expect to find it shelved under inspirational, but it is. And while you're on that subject, so many great leaders in all fields had tough times. And Dabo, as you say, that had the tough times that would compare with most anybody. And here he was, a pretty darn outstanding high school athlete. On that same subject, when he got through practicing football, baseball, basketball, and a little tennis and golf on the side just to balance out, what did he do with himself to help the family pick up a buck or two?
Well, he would go around to the more affluent neighborhoods in Birmingham with a leaf blower and knock on doors and say, hey, can I clean your gutters? And he consistently did that just to earn some extra money. And he did that all the way through college. He would drive back.
While he was in Alabama?
Yeah, he would drive on the weekends. He would drive from Tuscaloosa back to these same neighborhoods, and people came to expect him. And yeah, and you know, he was always just trying to make an extra buck here or there to help out the family. As I write in the book, you know, his mother was struggling financially. She had a job at a department store here in Birmingham, but couldn't afford her own place, so she literally moved into Dabo's apartment in Tuscaloosa while he was there. And to make some extra room in a closet, Dabo fashioned a broom handle and wedged it into the closet to give his mom space so she could hang some of her clothes. They slept in the same bed, and you know, she would always cook a big dinner for his teammates and friends on Sunday nights. And to Dabo, that wasn't strange. You know, it was just, hey, this is what I have to do to make it through, to keep moving forward, to get our family sort of back on track. And you know, Kathleen became, or I'm sorry, his mother became very popular again because she was such a good cook.
Well, that's as a reader, well, and I'm a pretty rabid college football fan. That story of the many, many, many stories in your incredible book stood out so much to me. Since we have read the advanced copy and are talking about it to folks who come in, I think it's remarkable. What's remarkable is that it was unremarkable to Dabo to have that situation. And and I confess I don't reread much, but I reread that part, and it makes sense under the circumstances to the kind of guy who would climb up and clean gutters after practicing football all day.
Yeah, I mean, he's really smart, okay, and there's no question about that, but he's also an overachiever, and he's always going to take care of his family the way he, I mean, again, right now at Clemson, the emphasis is on family, family, family.
Another inside scoop that I just love, all these little, you got to read this book. Would you share just quickly the part where he was packing up, leaving to go back home because he ran out of money? There was a problem with the Pell Grant, and what saved him and made Dabo's world happen? What was the manna from heaven, so to speak?
Yeah, just he had been told that there had been a problem with his Pell Grant and that he wouldn't be able to afford tuition. And so he was very distraught, went back to his apartment, called his mom, was in tears, crying, and then he went and checked the mailbox, and there was a credit card, application for a credit card. Actually, it was a Discovery, I think it was a Discovery card, if I remember correctly, and it said that he had this line of credit. And he thought for sure, hey, there must be some mistake. and he ended up calling, and and literally, like, as he's on the phone talking to a customer service agent, he gets put on hold, and as he's put on hold, his whole future is sort of hanging in the balance there. And she said, yes, because of your grades, you qualify for this credit card. And Dabo went and paid off his rent, paid off his tuition, and the rest is history.
Well, that brings me to another of the revolution also. In your book, when Gene Stallings left, Dabo was out of a job. He called all his friends, and he could not get a football job anywhere, but he landed on his feet. What did Dabo do to make a living between coaching at Alabama and Clemson?
He became a commercial real estate agent. And there were signs all around Birmingham. They were green and white. Said, call Dabo Sweeney, and there would be a number there. And his job really was to sell the real estate space in shopping malls around the country. And so he would study traffic patterns, median income of the people who live nearby. And he learned that you need to get a big anchor store, right? And then you get this, like a, now it would be like a Target or, a big department store. And then you work on filling the shopping center out with the smaller stores. But Dabo would go into every meeting just so well prepared, and then he also wanted to know, what was the client looking for? What were they hoping to get out of it? And he really, during this time, it's like he was honing his skills as a recruiter, because he had to convince people to sometimes do things that they didn't necessarily think they were going to do. And he was very, very successful. He was working for Rich Wingo, who had been the strength and conditioning coach and in charge of the walk-on program when Dabo first started at Alabama. And Wingo was just amazed at how quickly Dabo picked everything up. I paint the scene of Dabo leaving his house for the first day, briefcase in hand, got the tie, and his wife Kathleen, she's almost in tears because she just felt like his dream of being a head coach had died at that point. But he ends up having sort of a chance interaction with Tommy Bowden at a church in Tuscaloosa, and Dabo waited, and he saw Tommy Bowden I think Bowden was speaking, and he waited for the crowd to thin after the service was over, and he went up to Bowden and just said, how much he missed coaching, and that really stuck with Bowden. And so a couple years later, when Bowden had an opening on his staff, he hired Dabo. And at the time, people were on his staff were like, "What are you doing? This guy's been out of football for several years, and you're hiring him." But Bowden was insistent because he knew that Dabo could be a really good recruiter. Dabo just has a way of connecting with young people, connecting with parents, and articulating a very clear vision of what he has in store for that young man who would come to Clemson. And when he was at Alabama as an assistant, he was really the top recruiter on the staff. I think when he was let go, I think something like 37 of the players at Alabama had been personally recruited by Dabo. It's his people skills more than his coaching skills that is his sort of the signature of what he does. And then when he becomes a head coach after Tommy Bowden resigns or fired, there's still some question of whether or not what went down there. But Bowden recommended Dabo to be a head coach, even though he had never been a coordinator before. And I'm telling you, this never happens. I write in the book, it happens about as often as Halley's Comet flying by, and I think that's one every 77 years or something.
Pretty fair comparison.
Yeah, yeah. So they showed a lot of faith in Dabo at Clemson.
Well, it's a beautifully written story, and it's going to delight and inspire and really, obviously, more fully inform every reader. Lars Anderson, we appreciate your taking time. We know it's an amazing schedule, and we really appreciate your stopping by and giving folks a little tidbit of what's in this absolutely wonderful book for football fans or readers everywhere. Thank you very much.
Thank you again, Jake, and again, you, Alabama Booksmith, have been so supportive of my career over the years. You've promoted so many of my books, done so many events for me, and just thank you, and thank you for being a friend more than anything.
Oh, well, that's, I hate to get commercial after that. We love it, and we love your books, and thank you for what you've done for us. And you may purchase signed first editions of Dabo's World at alabamabooksmith.com.